Hi, welcome to Changemakers, a smarter school podcast exploring how to live a successful and happy life. I am Tshego Modise, your host. On every episode, I talk to great thinkers and doers from different walks of life who are at the forefront of positively impacting society. Our conversations focus on their specific journeys to achieving their goals. We talk mindsets, books, advice, and tools they use to keep them motivated. All the key ingredients you need for a happy and fulfilling life. I hope you enjoy this next episode.
The exposure to all those components led me to understand that in life, to go forward, you need a vision. And a vision means that where do you see your life going? What is the purpose and the meaning of the life that you have? How do you want to mold it? So that is basically how I subscribe to. I want to be a woman and a person of vision, of character that develops not only oneself but others.
Let's go. Hello, Tshego Modise, how are you?
I am great, Katlego, and how are you? I'm so glad to be on your podcast and your platform, Smart is Cool.
The first question is always, who is Tshego Modise? Where do you come from? And before you respond to that, I want you to also, include your ascendance into your current position as the Chief Executive Officer of Aeon Investment Management.
Oh, thank you. I could tell a story for 5 years about my background and my journey to Aeon and this new position that I took on from the 1st of July 2021. But who is Tshego? Actually, Tshego is short for Tshego Faditjwe. I am a Tswana born girl. I am from Bloemfontein. My family is based in Bloemfontein. And I moved to Cape Town to work in the investment management industry. I have over 7 years experience in financial services industry. And what I truly enjoy and who am I, the essence of who I am, I believe I'm a person who believes that for one to have a life that is legendary, you need to have a vision. So I'm the type of person who's very focused on living a life that is fulfilled through having a vision, and a vision that does not just encapsulate my own life, but also impacting the lives of others. So coming from the background that I come from, I mean, in my family, like, I'm the first person to work in the investment management industry. I'm the first person in my family to be in corporate, in terms of like becoming a CEO in corporate, being in the C-suite, right? I come from a family as well of teachers, people who were teachers, nurses. Some people work as well as electrical engineers. That's like the newer generation. But then predominantly my grandparents, obviously because of apartheid, were not people who were, in corporate, or a lot of them didn't have professional jobs. So my grandparents, for instance, both on my mother and my father's side, they were people who were working in hospitals, maybe as caretakers, as groundsmen and groundswomen, and like domestic workers, that kind of work. So to see myself where I am today, I truly believe that is like the blessing of God, and also the prayers of my grandmothers being answered, that banababo, their children, sorry, I keep speaking going into vernac, that their children will will see a better life. I see my parents as teachers. I grew up, my parents bought a farm when I was younger, and at the time that was a brave and big step for them. I mean, financially, family wise, was a huge step. I mean, straight after apartheid and 1994, the elections took place. 1995, they bought a farm, and it was a really big challenge for them, and they had to learn that. And all of a sudden I went from living in sort of semi-suburbs to now living isolated and in this one place where there are cows and ducks and pigs and these weird things. And I'm like, okay. But the one thing that my parents had instilled at the time in me was a love for reading. So because they were both teachers, they both really had the passion, children should read. So in our house, we had a lot of books. Having seen that, that education was modeled, and also learning, because I feel like there's a difference between education and learning. education is what you can tell me and give me, but learning is something that has to be pursued by you within, you know? And it's so beautiful that you have, I think that is Steve Biko, the picture at the back there that I see. And I remember like my dad made me read and listen to stuff about Steve Biko, Robert Sobukwe, and like I learned a lot about political figures growing up. But one of the things, just saying, like this sums up the woman who's sitting in front of you, a woman who has the lineage that she has from her family background, the understanding that education is a key, was a key, remains a key to opening doors, but also believing in having a personal vision so that I could sit in front of you today in as the CEO of Aeon Investment Management. And what I've been so fortunate with Aeon Investment Management is that it's a firm that was started by an individual, Asif Mohammed, who truly believed that he wanted to prove that Black people could manage money. And he started that journey in 2005. And when I joined in 2017. I joined as the Junior Business Development Officer. I had just come from PPS Investments. And in joining Aeon, I was able to become a part of a business that was still obviously establishing itself in the institutional market that we service. Predominantly we service institutional clients like pension funds, provident funds, retirement funds, multi-managers, and such. And to see that world open up, I mean, I just gave you my background. I don't have family who work in the investment management industry. I don't have family who are investment professionals. So it was a big, exposure for me, And today, I remember when I joined at the time, the growth trajectory for Aeon was a bit slow, considering that they had the products, they had the investment products and strategies that were doing well.
Sorry to cut you short here. So I mean, I want to track back a bit. When you spoke earlier, you spoke about carving a vision for yourself and living an impactful life. So before we get a bit deeper into, how did you get to CEO position? Can we just start there? So where does that sort of view of life come from?
My view on life in terms of having a vision.
Yeah, vision and living an impactful life. Where does that come from?
I think it's having a father who was so politically in tune. I mean, growing up around parents or grown-ups who are constantly talking about the issues of the time, how they hope to see South Africa go from strength to strength, that, freedom in terms of, as Black people being able to vote and having economic freedom is great, but we need to be able to be a country that sustains this trajectory of growth. I mean, growing up, those are the kind of conversations I grew up around, about leadership, impact, ensuring that we hand over, we don't become like certain other African countries in the sense of we get independence, we get a vote for the Black man goes into power, but we need to make sure that the Black man can then sustain the power, and it's inclusive growth, it's inclusive development. And so I think growing up in a home where those kind of conversations were taking place on almost a daily basis, and because my parents were also educators, them exposing me to books. I mean, I remember growing up, I think by the time I was 14, I had read Goodbye Bafana, which was written by the prison warden who was the prison warden to Nelson Mandela. And I remember by the time I was 17, I'd already read Long Walk to Freedom. But even during that time, I had already read books like by Richard Branson, or books on how his journey was as an entrepreneur, building Vision. I'd already read books on Andrew Carnegie, Benjamin Franklin. So I had read books about capitalism. I'd read books about business. I've read books about personal development. And so I suppose the exposure to all those components led me to understand that in life, to go forward, you need a vision. And a vision means that where do you see your life going? What is the purpose and the meaning of the life that you have? How do you want to mold it? So that is basically how I subscribe to. I want to be a woman and a person of vision. of character that develops not only oneself but others, because
Sure.
that's how powerful your life can be. Yeah,
Yeah.
that's
So I want to get to that, get into those books and starting, engaging in that sort of literature early on in your life. So how did it really happen for you? Because I know a lot of people don't find reading, really fun. Some of them have to be forced. So for you, was it like a natural inclination that you're like, okay, I enjoy reading, oh, I love this book. So instead of picking up maybe a fictional, book, you picked up a Steve Biko book, or who did you mention, Benjamin Franklin book, or a Goodbye Bafana book. What made you, go that route? Was it natural, or were your parents really instilling this and forcing you to read that kind of literature?
no. I think my parents only forced one thing, and that was what is it? You will be a well mannered child. But in terms of reading and stuff, no. I think one thing is I saw their love for knowledge. And I think this is why it's so important for parents to model. Like a lot of my acquaintances and friends and people that I'm around, I actually realized we end up enacting what we saw growing up. So I really believe that I picked up the loving of learning, or maybe it was there in me, but it became more stronger because of the type of parents I had. And also coming back from the point of view that I was growing up in a sort of a small holding farm, right? So I
Yeah.
didn't have friends. It's not like normal, when I visit my grandmother, go vacationing
Yeah,
in
go
Rocklands,
guys.
in Bloemfontein, I had people around me. I could play like, things, Miranda, say all those things. But when I get, but
Yeah.
majority of the time I'm at home. And at home, there's nobody except the cows, the ducks, the pigs. That's it. So you have to keep yourself entertained. And one thing is, I grew up also in a family where my brother loved movies and my parents also loved music and stuff. So we were always watching movies together. So I remember we had Mnet. Yeah, Mnet. Before DSTV, there was Mnet. That's how old
Yeah.
I
You
am. Sorry.
young. That's how young you
Yes.
are.
Yes, that's how young I am. Yes, 31 years old. 31 years, yeah, old.
Yeah.
And I
Very
remember,
young.
like, we are. What I remember was that how we would watch all those movies, like Cinderella and Lion King. Like, I was a Disney child,
Sure.
and that's another thing. Those little things like that made. So what I'm gonna make an example. What my dad would do, would watch a movie. Let's say we'd watch Cinderella, ne, or Snow White, or Lion King. Then what my parents would do then is that they would then go and buy the storybook, the storybook of
Of that
the, what's this
movie.
thing called, of the movie, right?
Yeah.
The storybook. So what would happen is I just watched the movie, but now I'm going to actually read the movie out in a book. So those
Yeah.
kind of things also encourage, like, oh, I see a book that has Simba and I'm reading what was done in the book. And I think it just connected that thing of what you see, you can also read. Right? And
Yeah.
another thing we also used to do was that my dad loved to buy newspapers every single week. So every week there would be newspapers. And on Sunday he would just lay them on the table and he would start reading. So my dad has this memory that apparently I once cried when I was very young. When I was like 3 or 4, I cried because I couldn't write. Oh no, I couldn't write or read. I couldn't read. So he says that he remember that's one of his earliest memories of me. In Nikila, I was crying that I couldn't read.
Yeah.
So he knew from an early age that I would love reading. I'd want to learn the art of reading, right? So I
Yeah.
suppose being around that kind of parenting or home encouraged then that Tshego, pick up the book, read. But innately within me, I also had that desire that I wanted to read. But I didn't start off reading heavy books. Like I said, I was reading your Cinderellas, your
The
Snow White,
Cinderellas. I
Disney type
get
of
you.
books. And then I was also the type of girl to be reading Harry Potter, Lord of the Rings and stuff. Before I watch the movies, I read the books. So I just love reading. But also because I grew up in an environment where I didn't really have a lot of people to interact with. So to keep my mind engaged, I would interact with books. And
Yeah.
the nice thing about books is that I managed to also live other people's lives. Like, one of the things I really realized from an early age is I loved autobiographies. I
Yeah.
liked how you could listen and hear a person's life in a book. And I remember it was through reading Andrew Carnegie's book that he had commissioned through Napoleon Hill, The Master Key to Riches. Because a lot of people don't know, Napoleon Hill also wrote a book called The Master Key to Riches. Besides Think and Grow Rich, majority of people know him for Think and Grow Rich.
Yeah, yeah,
But my
yeah,
dad
yeah.
had an early edition or copy of The Master Key to Riches. So that's the one I read before I even discovered that he had a book called Think and Grow Rich. So
Rich,
books
yeah.
like that made me, or I think the first chapter in that book is you must have a definite major purpose in life. So, like, imagine,
Wow.
like, that's the first one of the books you read, and that's the first chapter. Already, you're like,
Yeah.
yeah,
Wow. Yeah. And
awake
that
to
time
yourself.
you are 3 years old reading that
No,
first
I'm
chapter.
not. No, at that time I was what? I read that book when I was 12. I read that book when I was
Wow.
12. Yeah.
Sure. Okay, so let's stick with the vision and planning theme, So when do you decide, okay, I want to work in the finance and investment space? Where does that come from? When did you, make that decision in your life? And why did you decide to be in that space particularly?
So actually, I don't think it was a conscious decision at first. It was when I finished varsity, I had bursaries, and my bursaries were going to cover for me to study accounting. So at the time, I wanted to be a CA, and I was like, oh, I'm going to be a CA. I have to have money. I'm going to be so rich. And also another thing in my life is I wanted to be a business leader in the business world in South Africa. I felt like that is my ultimate goal in life. I want to be a business leader, top business leader, woman, and especially since I also used to look up to people like Basetsana Kumalo, right? But a lot of the information we got in school was, the CA Psycha route, that's the way to go. So when I finished varsity, when I finished matric, started at the University of the Free State, and I enrolled for the BAC program, which would lead you to this CA route. So that was great. But by my third year, actually, what happened is I failed. I failed my third year, which was like the first time in my entire life that I ever failed. Like, that was academically, like, that was really painful. And I remember that year, that December 2011, I sat down and I said, you know what? Oh, wow. Okay. Because by then I had discovered my faith in Christ, and I was like, okay, God, like, what am I going to do? Because I've been planning my life around becoming a CA. I've just failed, I'm not going to be doing CTA the next year. What's going to happen? And I remember going into a period of fasting for like 3 days because I was also down. I was disappointed. I was sad. I was like, oh, now I'm gonna pay for next year, because obviously I didn't want to be a financial burden to my parents. I've been studying with the bursary, so they're not used to anymore paying anything for me. And I was fortunate that during that time I took out just to set my heart aside with God, and I wrote down like what I felt was in my heart. And I remember like things I wrote down was what I felt my life is about. I remember writing down the things that I want my life to produce. I remember writing my purpose down. I remember writing my vision down, or what I felt was inspired from God in my heart. And one of the things that was written down there was investment management. And I was like, yeah, investment management. Okay, we'll just writing stuff down. And then the next year I went back, started redid my third year. And when I was done studying, what happened is I decided to work at a call center agency, as a call center agent for Nashua Mobile. At the time, Nashua Mobile had offices before they obviously closed the company down. They had offices in Bloemfontein, and they had a really great call center agency, and it paid well. I remember like the going rate at the time was like 10,000 Rand a month, and that was 2014 or 13. And I was
Yeah.
like, yo, this is
Okay.
good money. 10,000,
Call
I live at
center. Sure.
home. Yes, I can figure life out. Because one thing that happened is when I was done with my degree, I actually came to the realization I don't want to be an auditor, because that's all I knew at the time. I thought auditing. I don't want to be a CA and work in auditing. This is going to kill my heart.
Yeah.
I'm not there. So I gave myself breathing room. So my breathing room was, I will not sit at home. I'll have a job. My job will be this call center agency. And then while I was working there, a friend recommended me to go work at Sanlam Personal Finance as a financial planner. And I was like, oh, okay, let me try it. I went, did the interview, got in. And when I got in, one of the things that I
want to, sorry, Tshego. I want to track back to your, after you fail, you come back, right? You pray, you fast, and you're saying you're writing all these things down. You had investment management. You know, are you saying that came out of nowhere? And, you know, after you had written all these things down, did you actually have like a clear action plan of what exactly are you going to get to some of those things you wrote? You mentioned just one, investment management, but it would be also good to hear what else you wrote in terms of your broader vision at that point, because you also said, what do you want to come out of your life?
I wrote a lot.
Yeah.
I wrote a lot. So, and I will just say, I'm not yet comfortable saying everything else I wrote there, because it feels like it's a lot of stuff, and some of it I think is starting to happen, but it's not done. It's not yet time for me to talk about it. But one of the things there definitely was investment management, and
So did you have a plan to this is how I'm gonna get?
The whole thing was, here is what's in your heart. You prayed about it, you fasted, and all it did, it gave me hope that my life is not a failure. Because remember, I'm coming out of a moment of failure and disappointment. And all this is giving me is like an opening into my heart to say, your life will amount to something. You are not at the end. This is just the beginning. Like literally, I kept that page for years. I lost it, but luckily for me, what happened is I had copied it over. So I have a copy of it. So I still have it. It's just, I had the original page it was literally just a page, literally, that I wrote down everything. And I was like, for years, I'd pray over it. It didn't say, no, now go do this. The only thing I knew was finish the degree. That's all I knew. And this is the part where I would say to your audience and people who listen is that I know we come from a space where, or especially right now in a culture where people are like, they want to give you like 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 steps, and then do this, and then you first start at varsity, then after varsity, then you do this, then you do that, then you do. But sometimes I think your life and where it will go will sometimes come out of a space where you do not know. Does that make sense? But you have to trust that the process that you have enabled yourself to be a part of will yield something positive. So that is all I'm going to say. That is what I'm going to say. So I wasn't operating from a space where I knew exactly what I wanted to do. I was operating from a space that I know what I want to become. I am trusting you, God. You're going to work this out for my good. In the meantime, whatever comes into my hand, I will do it well, regardless of what it is.
Yeah. So I mean, I like that. I want to get a bit deeper into it. I mean, it reminds me of a conversation I had with Motlacho. That was one of our first episodes where she spoke about being open, to serendipity, and and she also actually was not doing well in some of the courses, was not enjoying it, and did something else. Now she's she was enjoying this population studies and has a PhD today as we speak on that. So it's really familiar what you say. And I want to speak with that, being open to a process that you've trusted to take you somewhere, even though you don't know the exact, from A, this is how I go to B, from B, this is how I go to C. How do you, because I know the Bible, since you're talking faith a lot, so let me also get into it. The Bible says, faith without action is as good as dead, right? So there are certain things that you need to do But it also says that God is a planner, right? So he's very intentional about everything that he wants to do. And you should also take, that mind or embody God as a child of God. So I'm thinking, planning is not necessarily something that's not godly. It's part of who we are as a people, so how do you then go from not knowing exactly, so you're in this amorphous, maybe I'll put it that way, space where it's not clear, what's shaping in your life. How do you get to a point where it's starting to become clearer, and what you wrote on your page, in 2011, I think you said, it's now starting to take shape and it's now making sense? What do you start doing, and how do you get to now being to where you are today?
I think the one thing people then should not understand is, yes, God is a planner. And I believe, like, the Bible says, many are the plans in a man's heart, but it's the Lord's purpose that prevails, right? So one of the things so on that page, all I wrote were things like investment management, owning companies. The other thing I remember writing was having a construction company. And I was like, construction company? Like, okay, Funny enough, in 2012, what ended up happening, friends of mine in varsity and stuff, we decided to start a construction company out of the blue. Out of the blue, I connect with people I'd never connected with. We become friends, and now we're starting a construction company. And in this construction company, I remember we even called it Genesis Africa, like the beginning. And one of the things that we started doing is we did home improvements. You know how in locations and stuff, you find like people are always doing home improvements. So we wanted to be the construction company for them. Hire good artisans, bring them in, get them to, do home improvements, and then we get paid as a business, right? So it was saying on this page, I had written ideas and thoughts and things I see in my life, in my vision from what I believe was God, right? Or is God. And then the process is I'm back in varsity, and through varsity, I'm again meeting new people who then lead me to one of the things that's on that page. But how do I know to trust the process? Because it's not that I prayed and I fasted that last time. I kept connected to God. I kept connected to the source of that inspiration, so that when it was something that was meant for me, I could feel the nudge in my, a lot of great business people, they just say they had a gut feeling, like they had the instinct that you must do this. So I leaned into that. And the nice thing is, when you know that you have written the vision down, in the book of Habakkuk, right, it says, write the vision down. I have written the vision down. So when something that looks like what's on the vision pops up, already my entire being is already interested in seeing further. So that, I think that's one of the things that we must not neglect that's the thing. When you've written it down, you alert yourself then to when it becomes available. So when those friends said, let's start a company, I was in. I helped run that company. We started it up. We won prizes. We won an ILO Best Enterprise Challenge, Best New Entity. Like, we won money. We won like a lot of opportunities. And through those opportunities as well, I started discovering that I love business and I love building businesses. And I realized I have a very strong inclination towards building up organizations and teams. So do you see, like, I had to have the Genesis Africa experience to come to a place where I realized, oh, Tshego, you have a very good entrepreneurial inclination, but it's not just entrepreneurial. You also like building an organization up and its team and its people. And also it taught me a lot about networking and being comfortable, being around various business people and, sharing the vision, sharing an opportunity, getting comfortable about talking, speaking, and what then ended up leading to is, because I was building up these skills, by the time I encountered the opportunity to work at Aeon Investment Management, all those skills that I had been building up over the years were what Aeon needed when I started.
Sure. So tell me, I love that. So all these things were sort of lined up to prepare you, for Aeon. So how do you hear about Aeon? I think at the time you were at PPS Investments.
Yes.
If I'm not mistaken, yeah. So how do you hear about Aeon? How do you apply? And why do you think they chose you? What did you do to make them say, okay, let's get ke tshegofaditšwe.
So this is a very interesting thing, and this is where again I'll say like divine intervention. I had just moved to Cape Town in February 2017, and I was working at PPS Investments, and a friend of mine was part of an organization called APSIP. So so through APSIP, she got an invitation. They were hosting Nonhlanhla Nene, who was the former finance minister at the time, for a talk. And I remember she's like, "Oh, you want to come along?" And I was like, "Yeah, great. I've just been in Cape Town for like a month." And I get to the event. When I get to the event, where I'm sitting, I wasn't sitting far from, I was sitting actually right behind me was sitting Always Asma. And at the time, Always was the COO for Aeon Investment Management. Aeon at the time was managing just under 6 billion in assets under management. And that's why I'm going to be very divine. At that moment, I arrived in February, right? In February, at the end of January, their junior business development officer had just resigned, or like her resignation was effective, that she's no longer going to be there. So by the time, during the networking session, after Ntate Nonhlanhla has finished his talk and we are all like networking, I go to the sushi bar and I find Always there. And we end up talking a bit, right? And we are laughing, chatting and stuff. And he asks me, "What do you do?" And I've shared this on multiple platforms, and I love sharing this because I think it's so important. The day before, I had just joined a new home cell family here in Cape Town, because in Bloemfontein, I was part of a home cell, which is like a Bible church fellowship group from my church. So I joined the Cape Town one, right? And that night, one of my the new leaders that I'd met, while he was chatting to me, he told me, "Tshego, next time someone asks you, what do you do?" Because I don't know how we ended up getting to this, but one of the things he had directed me to do is that next time someone asks you, "What do you do?" you must tell them what you want to do. So literally the next time was the next evening at this function. So I'm standing in front of Always, and I remember Khalid's advice. Tell them what you want to do, not what you do.
That's crazy.
And then, yes, and that's how I told him. I said, I want you to be in investor relations, in the terms of I want to work with an institutional focused asset manager. I want to help with client relations. I want to also be truly involved as well in building the business development pipeline of that firm, and understanding the business, supporting the senior professionals, investment professionals, helping to voice out the brand of the business to its stakeholders. Like, that's the kind of work I want to be involved in. So I'm chatting to Always, and lo and behold, they were looking for that exact position. So that is why I do believe in, there is a place for your plans, but there's also a place for God to guide, direct. Do you get what I'm saying? Like, it's the little things that you think are not big that actually could be catalysts for the pivots that your life needs to get to the place you need to be in. And then the next week, Always sent me the next day he sent me the job specs. The next week I applied, got some recommendations from friends, how I should process my, how do I craft my pitch, why I want to be selected. I wasn't the most experienced. I wasn't the most qualified. But I believe that because I shared my vision as well of who I am and what I want to do, because incidentally in the interview that I had with them face to face, I also shared that page, a bit about that page. Like, this is my life purpose. This is what I want to do. This is what I'm about. This is where I see myself. I didn't just come with, give me a job. I gave them, this is where I'm stepping towards. And I would like to be a part of this vision because this is where I'm going.
Sheesh, man. That's, like you said, divine. I'm gobsmacked. So that's quite interesting how you then got into Aeon, So you start doing first, I think it was business development, right? Yes. Before you ascend, which very recently, a few months ago into CEO. But what do you do right, from 2017 the head of business development to make, the guys at Aeon to say, okay, you can be our next CEO and take this company forward?
I think it's not what you do right. It's not as in like it's one thing. I think it is more what you bring. Does that make sense? Like I start this obviously with, at the time I just only had my undergrad, which is a BAc in accounting, right? I have a bachelor's of accounting degree from the University of Free State. At the time, I'm also trying to understand the industry better, so I'm starting a postgrad in investment planning. And I'm like, okay, I want to really improve my skill set, obviously, for this industry. But what I brought to the table was, I'm a hard worker. I don't mind like filling the gap. I see the gap. The gap in our business at the time was we didn't really have a strong branding. We're still developing our marketing and our feel and stuff. So I got myself involved in that. Mind you, I did not study marketing as my specialization. So I'm learning as much as possible about how do you brand a business, how do you make it look and feel better and upgrade like its websites, upgrade its simple things like presentation templates and stuff like that. And also because I got to work very closely with Asif Mohammed, who started the business, and he's the CIO, but also he was the de facto CEO. I got to see and interact with him a lot in terms of clients, whenever he speaks to clients, how he speaks to clients. I remember one of my first duties in the job was that I was also responsible for his emails, right? So, and mind you, someone else would be like, wait a minute, I'm not a secretary. No. I actually understand why he did that. Because I was now intricately like responsible for helping him with his emails, I got to see everything that goes around in the business, like from clients requests, from accounts, from this, like you get to see everything that he sees in the business, right? And then you end up becoming sort of like a confidant. Like you start talking to him because obviously you are trying to respond to some of the things. Like, and what was funny is that what ended up happening is sometimes I've discussed something with him, but I've actually written the email and I've sent it off, but I've sent it off on behalf of him. So people don't know that it's actually Tshego responding, but under Asif's email. Like simple things like that, right? And to the point where you're also starting to contribute to the business strategy when they're making big decisions or small decisions about the business, about people. I think one of the biggest steps was when I started being more involved in when we are hiring. Like I would see the CV, he would ask me about what I think about the CV and stuff like that. So when you start having incremental decision-making contributions, I think that is when I realized my role was changing and my role was becoming more integral to the business. Yeah.
Lovely. So now you are CEO. So how did that come about? Like how did they decide that you're a CEO? What did you say to it? And where do you plan? What do you plan? For Aeon as the chief executive officer.
Oh, so how did this come about? 2019, we started having discussions about me. Late 2018. I did share with the business. I've been with the company now for over 2.5 years at the time. And I said, you know what, I have interest in doing an MBA and I want one day to be a CEO. And I didn't even say it's for Aeon. I just said I see myself as a CEO. And one of the career goals I have is I want to study an MBA and I want to seriously pursue one, And because of that conversation, Asif was like, oh, I didn't know that you wanted to be a CEO. And I was like, yeah, this is a dream that I want to see fulfilled in my life. I've always wanted to, help run a business, build it up, take it to a whole nother level. And at the time, I was already like assisting a lot in the business development scope of the business, like the staff decisions, helping where I think a strategy for the business. So I think from that conversation, we started talking about it a bit more regularly. And he started giving me more and more responsibility. Like, for instance, when he would go on like leave, he would go on leave. And mind you, years before, Asif didn't really take leave much. But when he'd go on leave, he would leave myself as the CEO, acting CEO, and then he'd leave Jay Vamashka, who's the senior portfolio manager at Aeon Investment Management. He would leave him as the acting CRO. So that, I think having that dynamic and those opportunities while Asif was gone for like 3 weeks or a month, that gave an opportunity to just say, okay, how do you do things when he's not here? What do you think? And I think that was a great experience, but it was also like, whoa, this is a big responsibility. Like understanding, like this is actually not as easy as I thought it would be, because that's the other thing. Sometimes we dream up stuff and we want to do things, but there is a cost to every dream, and you need to be willing to pay the cost. That's just. It's one thing to dream it, but there's a cost, and you must ask yourself, do you have the patience and the desire to pay the cost, right? So over time, it became like something that would get done as if it would go and leave 1 week, 2 weeks. Then I become acting CEO and stuff, and then we'd talk to staff, and staff would say, no, actually we support Tshego becoming a CEO and stuff. And what ended up happening is started also discussing with clients, because another thing that was happening is that we were growing rapidly. We were growing as a business. And I remember at the time when we first started announcing that I should be CEO, it was 2019. And at the time, I think we were managing just 10 billion. And then 2020, last year, we were managing just under 15 billion. And then now, as I sit with you today, we're almost managing 19 billion. So you can see like the business is growing really rapidly. And the more business grows, the scale, the commercialization of the business, it takes up more energy and stuff. And I think it was at the right time. It was at a time when Aeon now needs a CEO who can focus on the business now. And from the 1st of July, then I became now CEO. We had already been sort of in training for like a year and a half, but it didn't make the transition easy. It's still something I'm still understanding, because we're sort of like an established business that is still to grow to scale. Does that make sense?
So it makes sense. I want to dig a bit deeper into your 5 months. Is it 5 months? My counting is correct. Okay. From July to now you are the incumbent CEO. You're in this position. What has been your experience so far? Especially as a Black woman working with these gentlemen in your company so far, and managing so much money, 19 billion. What has been your experience so far?
I think my experience has been an out-of-body experience, to be honest, because I find myself sort of watching from the side and saying, is this me really? But one thing I will say is it's also been a very been a very reflective time, because you have to overcome your internal fears. You have to overcome your internal doubts. And the thing about your role is that it's playing out in front of people. It is not a job that takes place outside of public scrutiny, outside of team scrutiny. You are constantly in the spotlight. So you need to then learn, how do you operate in a space that you've never had to operate in an environment. It's like sort of like I've changed environments. One day I was on a golf course, cruising along in a golf cart, and now I'm in a Formula One racing space. Two different environments. But what I've found is I found great peers in the industry who've been supportive, who've been really like giving advice, who were willing to, just listen, to be there, to give contacts. One of the things I have loved is obviously to get an opportunity to be on podcasts like Smart is Cool, to be found, and to have a bigger platform for impact, for contribution, for influence. That has been amazing. But for me, it has been the team. The team at Aeon Investment Management have allowed me to evolve into the space, have allowed me to make mistakes, and have allowed me to grow into being a CEO. Does that make sense? Because it's one thing when you are the CEO designate, you're going to be the CEO. and it's another thing when you are CEO. Now you have more of a authoritative voice in certain things, and one of the things I've also loved is, it's Asif's business. He grew, he started it was his baby we've just turned 17 years. Next month will be 17 years officially in business. 16. Sorry, I'm already jumping into next year. 16 years in business. And one of the things that I've loved is how he has been humble enough to continue to, what is the word? She is my CEO. Does that make sense? Like that transition, transcending age, experience, qualification. This is my CEO, and I believe in her. So that has been really powerful for me. Where to now? Like you asked earlier, where to now is that yes, 19 billion is a great mark for the business. 5 years ago we were managing less than 6 billion. Now we're almost managing 20 billion, right? But the growth that we want as a business is to obviously continue to impact and get more of the market share in the institutional space, but also to grow the brand to be more recognizable for the investor community in South Africa, and also building to that 50 billion, 100 billion mark. That is the thing, to have an established large business that is recognized in the South African investor community, but to do it very organically, sustainably, and in a way that we believe will serve the South African investor community and eventually internationally as broadly and as well as possible. So that is the dream.
Yeah,
that is very clear to now.
Lovely. I want to, you mentioned something, but I want to ask you a question before you. Okay, I'm going to ask you two questions. Right. So you spoke earlier about, you growing into this position and doing the work that you do. Right. It's not hidden from public scrutiny, so it's there, and you are sort of, you made that analogy of golf cart to Formula One, that for many of us would be, a very stressful, time. So how are you managing that, except having a supportive team? How are you personally, managing that stress and making sure that you go out there and you speak your truth and you perform as best as you could? So that's the first question. And secondly, for most of us who don't know, right? You spoke about building this business from this 19 billion mark to 50, 100 billion, and being more influential and known to the investor community in South Africa at large. So what exactly is a CEO's job? What exactly do you do? So when you wake up and get into the office, what does your day look like? What does your week look like? So can you just take us through, what's your reflection on those two questions?
Okay, let's start with, I have remained grounded in my church. Like I'm still part of my church community. They were there. I'm still like, my faith is still a very strong anchor to who I am. So I have fought really hard to stay humble and grounded in that. Like, no matter what happens, I still go to church on Sunday. I still am part of my structure. I'm part of, for instance, the young adult structure in our church. So I still go to meetings. I still serve at church. I still go to evening services, listen to my pastors and stuff. I'm still my parents' daughter. If they like obviously put things right, I still listen.
Put you into order.
Yeah, staying grounded in the relationships you have is also a very important part of handling pressure of your work, right? So they've been a big part of my foundation. So it would not be sensible then to remove that, because they were a big part of your foundation, right? So I've maintained that. And I also I'm very fortunate, that I have a really great supportive partner, and like his love for me and the way that he like supports me and my career, and how he allows me to flourish in my career. I think that is something that I don't take for granted, that I have a partner who's truly and honestly for me, believes in me, supports me, encourages me, while he also builds his own career,
So tell us, what exactly does he do when you're saying he supports you? Like, what is he doing?
No, I mean, like, he he's like there, like he listens. Like if I've had a hectic day, he picks up the phone, we talk. We're not married yet. We're trusting God for great marriage soon. And
Yeah, sure.
yes, and what is the thing is he's allowed me to build the space. I mean, we've been together for over 8 years, so he's seen the whole journey. He's seen the journey of just left varsity, just graduated, call center, working at Salam, working at PPS, working now at Aeon, and the journey in Aeon. So he knows the story, he knows the sacrifices, he knows the pain points, he knows the joys, he knows the tears, he knows what my goals into the future are. So that's what I mean. He supports me because he knows me holistically as a person as well, right? So if let's say if I'm having a day that's tough, and he knows then how to sort of talk to me to remind me about why I do it when I can't remember the why at the time, And he's also the same person I have fun with. If sometimes we go away for like a weekend, or we do some fun things and stuff, because he also understands there's a balance, when I'm gonna have blind spots and I'm not being open to other people telling me about those blind spots, he's the person who tells me those blind spots. So that's the nice thing. I have a great church community. I have a great partner. I have great parents, and I also have great friends who also are for me, and they believe in me, and they give me support. And a lot of them also have experience in building companies and building very strong teams. So they give me advice, they give me insights, they give me a portion of their experience, So that's what I mean. I have a great support system. How does my typical day look like? That is still an evolving answer, in the sense of, after I walked into the position, now my main focus is strategy, right? That is what a CEO does. Strategy, building the team, casting vision. So I had to re-ask myself certain questions. Like in the past, I would have asked myself those questions partially. Now I had to ask myself those questions fully, sit down and troubleshoot where I could see like, okay, this is not fully done. My current focus at the moment in the business is taking our marketing to a whole nother level. So building out a marketing strategy, because I think that's the next level for Aeon Investment Management to go to it's the next step for us to go to a whole nother level. And then in terms of our IT, our digital infrastructure, like that is also something, preparing the business. I mean, we did exceptionally well in the hybrid environment, right? COVID hit, we managed to, pivot the business very well. Most of the staff actually are working from home. We've been able to meet all client deadlines and such, and seamlessly manage our investment management operations. But it is also important that we're building the business for the future. So that is where the strategy is at the moment as well, is like beefing up our IT strategy, ensuring that we are truly transformed for a digitally focused work environment, that we are, that we are ready for that, and that we continue to be as ready as possible. And then the other thing was our HR strategy, like succession planning, workforce planning, what roles are we going to need into the future to add more capacity and scale for the business. So that is my focus, marketing, ensuring our IT infrastructure is ideal for digital space, and then the succession workforce planning. That's what motivates majority of my day. And obviously getting involved in I sit on the board for Aeon Investment Management as well, so I'm an executive director as well on the board, and a prescribed officer for the business. So also learning and obviously contributing across the different divisions in the business. And that's my life.
Thank you very much, man, for sharing your life story with us. Your journey, and I learned quite a bit. More especially having mentors and advisors that you can always sort of relate to and engage with to help you a lot on what faith and having a vision can do, a role that it plays in your life and your career progression. That was quite interesting, and a new feel to not being to, how can I put it? You said like you want to plan each and everything and know, where A leads to, where B leads to. Sometimes you just have to go in and just trust that whatever you believe in, whatever process that you've, put yourself in will take you there. So that is quite enlightening, and a breath of fresh air. Yeah. So man, I know that you're recovering, from COVID-19. And I don't know, should I even be saying that on this platform? But you said it before, so that's why I'm saying it, right?
No, totally. It's okay.
Sure.
Okay,
And
okay.
you are vexed, so I think it's good that I can see that you've recovered, and it was great to meet you. I feel like I've known you for over 10 years already, so I'm looking forward, to more things that you're going to do. And then all the best, in your life in general. And I'm sure that guy's going to propose very, very soon. You talked about, marriage being, close to the corner, and all the best with also, growing Aeon investment management. Thank you very much for coming onto the Smarty School platform.
Thank you very much. Thank you, Katlego. Really was a pleasure to have this conversation with you, and it was a great experience. Actually, you're a great host, and I hope I get invited back.
For sure.
Next year, you can always invite me or one of my colleagues, and we'd love to have an opportunity to engage further. Maybe one day, if you're running like an investment focused,
definitely,
podcast fund, we could totally come on and share a bit about our investment, a bit about like investing in general. But thank you, Katlego. You have been a great host, and I wish Smarter School all the best, and that the podcast grows and you get thousands of downloads and on your journey to growing your own vision and where you're going with your life. And you have a cute child. I believe is it a son?
Yeah, it's a boy. I have two.
Hey,
I have a daughter and a son. So yeah, that was my 3-year-old. Yeah, thanks.
That is good. That's good. Yeah. Remember, at the end of the day, like, that's also another thing. We do this thing because we do want our children to have a better South Africa and a better world to come into, right? So I am a big believer that get as educated as possible, but make sure that you convert your experience and your qualifications into contribution towards making your current home the best it can be.
Yeah, no, that's great. Thanks, Rufat. Yeah, we should end with amen. Actually, it's been that sort of episode.
I just say it's out of habit. It's not. To be honest, but thank you very much, Kaka.
This has been a Smarty School production. Catch you on the next episode. Stay smart and keep well. If you enjoyed this episode of Changemakers, please subscribe if you have not already. Help us spread the word by rating and commenting on the podcast. We like hearing from you, as this will help us create better content and reach more people. Share this episode with your friends, family, and colleagues whom you think will benefit or like this sort of content. If you have questions for me or my guest, or topics that you would like us to discuss next time, email me at podcasts@smarteschool.co.za.